Hello travellers, and welcome to the very first episode of Gold Gated, the gold grinding challenge where we start from scratch at level 1, our goal to gather, quest and fight our way to the price of a WoW token without leaving the zone. But that's just the beginning. Once we hit the token milestone, we unlock the next zone where the journey resets and the challenge begins all over again. This series was inspired by the awesome creator Pathorelix on YouTube. His content gave me the push to launch this adventure, so make sure to check out his channel, linked to the description below. Before we begin, here are the rules of the Gold Gated Challenge. Rule 1. We may only acquire items through killing, farming, questing or crafting. No handouts, no shortcuts. Rule 2. We can sell anything we earn on the auction house, but we can't buy anything on the auction house. Rule 3. We cannot leave Elwynn Forest until we've earned enough gold to buy a WoW token. That token unlocks the next zone, but it must border Elwynn or be reachable by direct transport like the Deep Run tram. Flight paths don't count. Rule 4. Stormwind City is considered part of the Elwynn zone, but only for auction house and bank use only, nothing more. And Rule 5. We only complete the zone's challenge once we can afford a WoW token at the current market price. No locking in older values. With the rules in place, the coin purse is empty, so let's sharpen our blades and get going. This is Gold Gated, a humble dwarf rogue, down on his luck and low on coin. Rumours reached him that the humans in the Northshire Abbey are in need of help dealing with some Blackrock orcs. Hoping this human land holds the fortune he seeks. Will he get rich, or will he die trying? We begin our journey where all great human tales begin in the world of Azeroth, Northshire. Our rogue lends a hand with the local troubles, slaying kobolds, dealing with Blackrock spies, and earning the trust of the people. From there, it's off to Goldshire and the surrounding forests, where we grind out early quests and push towards level 10, unlocking our flying mount along the way. But we're not ready for riches just yet. With no idea what the auction house market looks like, we play it smart, scraping together just enough copper to train our first gathering professions, mining and herbalism. And so, the real grind begins. I decided to make the rounds on the local bandits scattered across Elwynn. They're not exactly the most dangerous foes, but they've got just enough loot potential to make it worth the trouble. I was crossing my fingers for a couple of random greys, whites, or maybe even a cheeky green to drop to toss up on the auction house. Worst case, I'd walk away with some vendor trash and a bit of coin for the purse. So, with our tools in hand and professions trained, we set out into the wilds of Elwynn, not as a hero, but as a humble gatherer. Copper veins glint in the hills, herbs sway gently by the riverbanks, and we take them all. Every node matters, every root, every rock, a tiny step closer to the token. The work is slow, methodical, the bags fill up, one stack at a time. No flashy loot, no rare drops, just a quiet promise that gold will come to those who grind. This is the Goldbound path, and we've only just begun. With that being said, after a while I decided to break up the gathering spree and go hunting for something a little bit more exciting. The rare creatures scattered throughout Elwynn. Maybe they're hiding something valuable, a shiny green drop, or a forgotten transmog piece that collectors are desperate for. It's a gamble, sure, but sometimes gold doesn't come from grinding, it comes from luck. Let's see if Elwynn's rares are feeling generous today. Of course, we're not just chasing rares for the thrill, we're chasing them for treasure. Here's what we're really after. From the depths of the Jasperlode mine, Mother Fang has a chance to drop the Broodmother's Carapace, a unique transmog chest piece that tends to fetch a decent sum on the auction house. From Thoros Lightfingers, the elusive thief lurking near Northshire, we're hunting a thuggish shield, rough, worn and oddly profitable. Out near the Stone Cairn Lake, Fed Fennel may be holding on to the Pale Skinner, a dagger that earned a cult following among transmog hunters. And from Gug Fat Candle, skulking near Fargo Deep Mine, we're hoping to loot a small wooden hammer, a drop that can sell for tens of thousands of gold if luck is on our side. Each of these drops is rare, but not impossible, and everyone brings us closer to the price of that WoW token. So, let's get to killing. I made the rounds on some of the other rares in the zone, Tarantis, Grizzle Ben, and a few more unlucky souls. The XP was the real prize here, since their drop tables aren't exactly a gold mine. Sure, you might snag a bag or a random white or grey drop, but most of their transmogs share appearances with other low-level items, making them practically worthless on the market. Still, every level I gained meant I hit harder, killed faster, and shaved a little more time off the grind. I kept my eyes peeled for Forest, still chasing that elusive thuggish shield. He's easily one of the most hotly contested rares in Elwynn, so if I want it, I need to be quick. Blink and someone else will tag him. No luck this time though, but I've still got a few random greens stashed away, so I can always roll the dice with these on the auction house. While roaming the zone and perfecting my loop, I took a moment to stop and look out towards Westfall, a potential future chapter in this journey. Like Elwynn, it's one of my all-time favourite zones in all of Azeroth, but first I have to earn my ticket out. Do I have the grit to endure this grind and make it there one day? Well, we're about to find out. One target that's not on our usual transmog hit list is Morgainga Sly, a crafty Defias rogue who, along with her bandit friends, has taken over the Mirror Lake orchard just besides Mirror Lake. Now, she's not exactly known for dropping gold-making treasures, but there's still a couple of things worth a shot. The live boots could bring in a bit of coin, and the jeweled daggers, while the auction house superstars, would actually be a direct upgrade for us if they don't sell. Either way, it's worth the detour. So, after hours of gathering, pickpocketing, and hunting down every rare creature in Elwynn Forest, the grind is finally starting to pay off. We've pickpocketed a solid stack of frayed knots, always a reliable seller, a few cobalt mining mallets along the way, decent vendor trash, but still better than nothing. We also managed to snag the Brood Mother's carapace from Mother Fang herself, a sleek little transmog piece that should turn some heads on the auction house. But the real jackpot, the small wooden hammer, dropped by Gug Fat Candle. This thing's a transmog gold mine, and easily the most valuable piece we've found so far, so let's hope that eventually sells on the auction house. It's not a WoW token just yet, but we're definitely on the right path. After some thought and a quick peek at the auction house, I decided it was time for a slight change. Herbalism was fine, but it just wasn't pulling its weight, so I dropped it for now and picked up engineering. Why? Because I noticed something interesting. Handfuls of copper bolts sell consistently, and far more for both raw copper and smelted bars. So, I got to work. I pushed my engineering skill up to 30, the minimum level needed to craft the bolts, and then smelted down every last piece of copper in my bags. What was once ore is now gold in the making. These always sell reliably on the auction house, as people are always wanting to come back and get their classic engineering leveled up, so from now on, all of our copper will be made into bolts. So, with the bolts crafted and posted in the auction house, it's time to dive back into the grind. Copper ore, pickpocketing, and rare spawns once again. Fortunately, the frayed knots keep dropping at a steady pace. The copper veins are building up in the bags again, and we've even picked up a couple of more transmog items to list on the auction house. Now, transmog sales can be slow, they're a long game, but when they hit big. Some of these hunters are willing to pay a pretty penny for the right luck, so we post them up and cross our fingers. Let's see if luck's still on our side. Alright, let's go check the mailbox and see if our efforts have paid off. Looks like the frayed knots have been steadily selling, no surprises there. We've already made a few gold off some random grey and white trash items, and of course the copper bolts continue to pull in a solid, reliable profit. No bites on the transmog items yet though, but we're holding out hope. One sale there could give us a massive boost towards our WoW token goal. If they sit too long, we might experiment with lowering the price a bit to encourage a sale, but for now, we stay patient. The right buyer is out there. Gold Gated isn't a rush, he's in this for a long haul. Taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture, we've done well so far. Eventually, we hit level 35, and that seemed to be a sweet spot right here in Elwynn. The mobs stopped scaling with us at level 30, so by level 35, we were cutting through them with ease, most drop in a single hit now. That little power gap made rare spawn hunting much faster, less time fighting and more time farming the drops that actually matter. The only big ticket item that slipped through our fingers so far is the thuggish shield dropped by Forest Lightfingers himself, the sneaky little guy. We've had to keep a closer eye on this spawn, but as it stands, here's where we're at. 1 Broodmother's Carapace, 1 Pale Skinner and 2 small wooden hammers. That's a solid transmog lineup so far. Now all we need to do is find the right buyers. The grind continues, the auction house is stocked, and Gold Gated's gold pouch is getting heavier by the day. But we're not done yet. So, let's do a quick review of this session's grind. We started off by farming copper ore and herbs across Elwynn. Once we had our gathering routes down, we shifted focus to rare spawn hunting, chasing those elusive transmog drops. From there, we worked our way into pickpocketing the Defias bandits, looking for that steady income from frayed knots. Eventually, we rolled all of these into a single, efficient loop, a full circuit around the zone that hits nodes, rares and bandits in one clean rotation. Between runs, we crafted handfuls of copper bolts from our ore, a strong seller on the auction house. We also milled our herbs and sold off the pigments for some solid side profit. We did give disenchantment a try with some of the rare drop greens, but honestly, not worth the effort this time, maybe in a future zone. And while our big ticket transmog pieces are still going on the auction house, we're staying patient. Just one sale could be a huge jump forward. All in all, we've made real progress. We're sitting just under 10% of the way to our WoW token goal, and you better believe we're diving into another grind tomorrow. To finish off this session of the Gold Gate Challenge, we crack open the mailbox one last time, and it's looking pretty decent. With everything sold, from frayed knots to copper bolts and a few surprise trash items, we've brought our total gold up to just under 31,500. Not bad at all, especially considering that none of our big ticket transmog items have sold yet. Once these go, we'll be rocketing towards the WoW token. And of course, as tradition demands, we check the slash played on this account. Wow, 1 day 11 hours already on Gold Gated. Not too shabby for a broke dwarf who started with nothing but a dagger and a dream. Alright, before I wrap this up, let's crunch some numbers. This session alone, we've raked in 31,489 gold. At the time of recording, a WoW token is sitting at 391,564 gold, which means we're sitting at just over 8% of our way to our goal. Not a bad start at all really, to say we're locked in Elwynn Forest. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in to watch the first episode of my Goldbound series. It honestly does mean a lot. Making longer form content like this is a whole new adventure for me, so your support really does go a long way. If you've got any suggestions for gold farms or techniques I haven't tried yet here in Elwynn, drop them in the comments, because I'll be reading every single one. Also, if you're into MMOs, tabletop RPGs, or just want to rep some nerdy style, check out my store, www.underdark.store. We've currently got 20% off sale running right now, and it's got legendary shirts at epic prices. So whether you're farming, fighting, or forging ahead, stay sharp and stay golden. And I'll see you next time. Hello travellers, and welcome back to the Goldbound Challenge. If you're new here, here's the deal. We're locked inside Elwynn Forest, and we're not allowed to leave until we earn enough gold through farming, crafting, questing, and cunning to buy a full WoW token. No shortcuts, no handouts, and absolutely no buying from the auction house. Selling though, that's fair game. The catch? We can only unlock a neighbouring zone once we hit the WoW token gold mark, and even then, we start the whole grind over, zone by zone. Stormwind counts as part of Elwynn for banking and the auction house only. Everything else, earned with grit, greed, and gold-gated trusty daggers. So buckle up, the forest is being stripped, pickpocketed, and mined clean, but we're not done yet. Let's dive into episode 2. Last time, we kicked off our journey in Northshire as a broke dwarf rogue with nothing but a dream and a pair of daggers. We trained up mining and herbalism, started gathering like mad, and discovered that frayed knots from Defias pockets were basically little gold nuggets. We mapped out a full farming loop, started rare hunting for transmog drops, and even swapped herbalism for engineering once we realised copper bolts were flying off the auction house. By the end of the grind, we'd scored some big ticket transmog items, posted a full bank tab of loot, and pushed our gold total to just under 31,500, which is 8% of the way to our WoW token goal. There's no time to rest though, because we're just getting started. For this episode, the mission's simple: double our current gold. We ended episode 1 with just under 31,500 gold, and now we're aiming to break 60,000. If we're feeling confident, that is. That means more farming, tighter route optimization, and hopefully, finally, a transmog sale or two to push us over the top. Let's see just how far we can go and stretch Elwynn's gold veins before the forest runs dry. So let's talk about the transmog drops we're chasing here in Elwynn, and more importantly, why they're worth our time. First up, Broodmother's Carapace dropped by Mother Fang in Jasperlow Mine. This one's got a drop rate of just 0.6%, and she only spawns once every couple of hours apparently. The item itself is a unique leather chest piece with no visual clones, meaning if you want this look, this is your only shot. That makes it valuable to transmog collectors who are hunting for rare, one-off appearances, and thankfully we already have one on the auction house right now. Then we've got the small wooden hammer, which comes from Gug Fat Candle, a rare kobold near the Fargo Deep Mine. This hammer is a bind and equip and also has no shared model. You won't find this look anywhere else in the game. It's not disenchantable, and collectors love it because it's one of those hidden gem lower level weapons with its own appearance ID. On certain realms, I've seen these listed on the auction house for up to 20,000 gold, so let's have our fingers crossed to see if the ones we already have sell eventually. Next up is the Pale Skinner, dropped by Fedfennel, another rare patrolling near Eastvale. This one's a dagger, and while it's not as exclusive as the others visually, it still sells thanks to its uncommon source and low drop rate. Transmog hunters go after it for its name, its rarity, and its use in RP outfits. We also have a couple of these stocked up on the auction house. And finally, the Fuggish Shield, a drop from Thoros Lightfingers. Unfortunately, we haven't seen this one yet. It's one of the rarer low-level shields in the game with a distinctive spiked design that's hard to find elsewhere. If it drops, it could easily be our biggest sale yet. So while these aren't guaranteed gold makers overnight, they're the kind of drops you list on the auction house and forget, until one day a collector logs in, spots it, and you wake up thousands of gold richer. Alright, let's take stock of the transmog loot we've gathered so far, and what's currently sitting on the auction house waiting for the right buyer. First, the standout piece, the Broodmother's Carapace we spoke about earlier. Definitely one of our crown jewels in our collection right now. Next up, we've got 7 kobold mining mallets. These are actually pretty cool. They're a small, rugged hammer dropped by kobolds all over Elwynn. While not as flashy as some of the other pieces we mentioned before, they're a neat, low-level weapon with a distinctive mining theme that some transmog collectors really dig. As we said, we also have 2 Pale Skinners right now, those sleek daggers from Fedfennel, and 4 small wooden hammers, the prized bind and equip weapon from Gug Fat Candle, that can fetch some serious gold. And finally, 2 stone knoll hammers. These come from knoll mobs in a zone and have a solid, rugged look that fits well in many warrior or hunter transmog sets. They're uncommon drops, and while not ultra rare, their unique style gives them steady demand on the auction house. All of these pieces are currently listed on the auction house, priced competitively. We might not see instant sales, transmog buyers can be picky, but with a patience, these unique looks should bring in some solid gold over time. Having a quick look at our mailbox now to start things off, and wow, looks like our frayed knots have all sold. That's a first. Normally they move a little bit slower, so this is definitely catching my eye right now. A quick check on the auction house confirms it. Someone's gone and scooped up the entire market and cranked up the price. These usually sit at around 200 to 300 gold, but now they're listed way higher. This could go one or two ways. Either it scares off buyers, or it'll up our profits big time. Either way, we'll ride the wave. Let's list any new frayed knots we have at the new market price and see if the gamble pays off. The grind is paying off so far though, and every listing brings us one step closer to that WoW token goal. So with all that laid out, it's time to dive back into the Elwynn loop we mapped out last episode, gathering herbs, mining copper veins, hunting rares and pickpocketing bandit camps for frayed knots. The grind waits for no one, and neither do we. Some of you might be wondering what happened to the sky golem from last episode, the mount we used to gather herbs while still mounted. Well, I've been doing some thinking. As handy as that is, it just doesn't seem like it fits to the spirit of the challenge. Sure, it was already in my mount collection, but it wasn't earned doing this run. So from here on out, say hello to Snowy, our new trusty mount, and the new face of this journey. He might not be able to gather herbs mid-gather, but he's ours, and that counts for something. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, but I think this may be the right call to keep the challenge grounded and honest going forward. So, after stacking up over 1000 copper ore from our loops, I decided it was time for a change. Herbalism has been solid, but I dropped it for now and picked engineering back up. Why? Because copper bolts have been selling like hotcakes on the auction house. I smelted every last ore into bars and then churned out a mountain of copper bolts. These little things might not look like much, but they sell steadily and for more than just the raw materials alone. So I packed them up, made my way to Stormwind and listed the lot of them on the auction house. Now we sit back and hopefully watch the gold roll in. Now that the copper bolts are listed on the auction house, it's time for another progression swap. Engineering is great when you've got the ore to spare, but until we've got another big stack, there's no point of holding on to it for now. So I dropped engineering once again and picked herbalism back up. That puts us right back in business, running a full Elwynn loop, mining, herbing, hunting rares and pickpocketing Defias bandits for those frayed knots. Let's get back to the grind. Alright, time for a mini challenge to break up the usual routine. We're running a full Elwynn loop with one goal in mind: gather at least 20 frayed knots. That means plenty of pickpocketing Defias around the zone, slipping behind enemies and looting those pouches like a true rogue. Anything else we get along the way, be it herbs or a cheeky rare transmog drop, will just be a bonus. Let's see how long it takes to hit the 20 knot mark. Time to get sneaky. So while we're working our way through this frayed knot grind, I wanted to take a moment to talk about something a little bit more personal to me. Why I started this series, and why World of Warcraft specifically. Like I mentioned in episode 1, I was inspired by a few other content creators to start this challenge, but my love for Warcraft runs a lot deeper than just YouTube trends. It all started back in 1994, when my dad bought Warcraft Orcs vs Humans for his PC. I was only a year old at the time, but a few years later, once I was old enough to bash some keys, he let me play his games. I had no idea what I was doing, but something about the universe just clicked and I was hooked. That love carried through to Warcraft 2 and eventually to Warcraft 3, and I still remember sitting in my dad's messy little home office playing custom games like Tower Defense and X-Hero Siege, side by side with him. I actually have a photo of it somewhere. Little me totally zoned in. I'll show it on screen right now. Then World of Warcraft came out, and man, I was blown away. The size of the world, the music, the graphics, hey, they looked good back then, alright? It was everything I loved about Warcraft turned into something so much bigger. I've been playing on and off ever since. Now, I'm in my early 30s. I honestly can't imagine a future where I'm not playing WoW in some form. Classic especially hits hard. The nostalgia, the atmosphere, the zones and the music, it just feels like home to me, and very few games can do that. So now I'm curious, how did you get into World of Warcraft yourself? Was it for a friend, a parent? Did you ever go to a midnight launch? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to read your stories too. So with story time out of the way and our nostalgia levels maxed, let's check in on the results of our little mini challenge. We set out to gather at least 20 frayed knots, and after just over 50 minutes of looping Elwynn, pickpocketing Defias and dodging the occasional kobold, we did it. 20 knots, mission completed. We actually had some solid RNG towards the end there, which helped us close the gap fast, and as a bonus, we scored a pretty sick transmog drop, fingerless gloves from Forest Lightfingers himself. It's a stylish little piece that tends to do well with role players and transmog hunters alike. Oh, and how could I forget, we also got a massive upgrade for Goldgated this session, a 16 slot Traveller's Backpack. That's right, no more stuffing rare loot into tiny 6 slot bags. This is a huge quality of life upgrade for the challenge, giving us way more room to hold onto ore, herbs, vendor trash and of course our frayed knots. For a challenge where inventory space is consistently tight, this drop is a big win. One less thing to worry about on our road to the WoW token. So, with our bags full and the market waiting, let's get all of this posted up on the auction house and see how it pays off. Fingers crossed. Happy with your previous day's grind, I logged back in the following day, ready to hit the grind hard and run the Elwynn loop again, but something immediately fell off. I flew over a copper vein, dipped down to mine it just like usual, and nothing. No interaction. Tried again, still nothing. Just an error message saying you are flying. Turns out I can't mine while flying anymore. This is the first time I've logged in since the game's update yesterday, so now I'm wondering, was this change intentional? Is it a bug? Or did Blizzard just stealth nerf a feature that we were relying on for our grind? So after doing a bit of digging online, pun absolutely intended of course, it turns out the whole mining while hovering thing was actually a bug that had been in the game for a while, it just never got fixed until now. With the latest patch, Blizzard finally pulled the plug, and according to some foreign threads online, if you want to mine while mounted, you now need to unlock a profession talent for it, but there's a catch, your mount has to be grounded and it looks like these profession talents aren't available in the classic crafting trees, as I think these were introduced in Dragonflight. Honestly, I completely forgot profession talents were even a thing in retail. It's been that long since I played that seriously. So this could be a big setback in our grind to get ores, but we take it in our stride. We are here for the long haul, after all. So to cap this episode off, we're diving back into a few more full loops of Elwynn, hitting our usual rare spawns, grabbing any ores or herbs we can find along the way, and hoping for 1 or 2 lucky transmog drops to round things off. This route's been pretty solid so far, and with our mailbox getting fuller by the hour, there's a good chance we've made some serious gold progressing since we started this episode. Once we've cleared a few loops, we'll head back to town, check the mailbox and tally up our auction house sales. Fingers crossed it's enough to hit or even surpass our goal of doubling our last episode's gold. So with the run complete, our materials banked, and all of our transmog and crafting goods freshly listed on the auction house, it's time to head back to Goldshire to see how we did. Our goal for this episode was to hit 60,000 gold, so let's open the mailbox and find out. I don't believe it. We're just under our goal. We're sitting at 59,361 gold in total. That's a huge leap from where we started, but just shy of our 60k goal. The biggest MVP this time, I think, was the frayed knots, hands down. When the entire market was suddenly bought out, we saw a solid boost in sales at the inflated prices, around 200 to 300 gold each. But once the prices were cranked even higher, sales started to slow down again. Hopefully things stabilise soon so we can keep moving this product. We've got a solid stockpile just waiting to go. The good news, we're once again sitting on a healthy stash of ore and herbs, ready to be processed and flipped for a steady profit next episode. And of course, let's check the slash played for this session. 1 day, 20 hours and 51 minutes. Wow, okay. Well, I think we're going to hit the 2-day mark very soon, so let's see what we're like at the end of episode 3. I have a feeling it's going to jump up a lot more with the things I've got planned in the background behind the scenes. So, just as we did at the end of the last episode, let's have a look at our total gold and see how much the WoW token is currently worth. We now have 59,361 gold, and the WoW token price has increased slightly to 403,394 gold. With that being said, we're now 14.7% of our way to our WoW token goal, which despite the WoW token price increasing is still a 6% increase compared to the end of the last episode, so I'll take it. Let's hope we have the same luck in the next episode, and let's keep our fingers crossed that the WoW token price starts to fall too. So, that looks like it's a wrap for episode 2 of the Goldbound challenge. Once again, thank you so much to everyone who stuck around to watch. It genuinely means the world to me that we're taking this journey together. If you've enjoyed this episode, give it a like to help the others find it, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss episode 3. This is Goldgated, signing out. And remember, whether you're farming, fighting, or forging ahead, stay sharp and stay golden. And I'll see you next time. Hello everyone, I'm Firebeard, and this is Goldgated. Welcome back to the Goldbound Challenge, episode 3. If you're new here, this is a gold making challenge with one big twist. I'm zone locked to Elwynn Forest, and I can't leave until I've earned enough gold entirely within the zone to buy a WoW token. No dungeons, no outside help, no world tours, just me, my professions, and the grind, all within the humble borders of Elwynn. The only exceptions, I can leave briefly to Stormwind to post and collect auctions, and once I've finally earned the gold for a WoW token, then, and only then, the lock is lifted. Now, a quick recap of episode 2. We set our sights doubling our goal from episode 1, aiming to reach 60,000 gold. We ran our now optimised Elwynn loop, mining, herbing, pickpocketing defiers for frayed knots, and camping rare spawns for valuable transmogs. Some market luck helped too. The entire frayed knot market was bought out, and for a short time we saw a boosted sales at premium prices. That helped carry us forward, along with some solid transmog flips and crafted goods. By the end of the run, we were sitting at 59,361 gold, just shy of our target, but a massive leap from where we started. Now, in episode 3, we're getting serious, so let's jump back in. Alright, let's kick things off by processing some materials. We've got a healthy stockpile of copper ore from our last Elwynn loop, so it's time to smelt it down into copper bars. These are always in demand, especially with engineers and blacksmiths levelling up, and they consistently sell better than raw ore on my server. Once that's done, we'll check in on the auction house. I've noticed the server economy is shifting a bit. Some prices are starting to dip, and a few markets I relied on last episode are either drying up or getting undercut hard. That's not ideal, but that's the nature of WoW's player economy, I guess. You've got to stay agile. Let's check our current listings and see if anything needs to be relisted or repriced. Hopefully we've had some frayed knot sales, but even if not, we'll adapt and pivot where we need to. Let's talk sales. So, it looks like we've had a few small sales here and there, but nothing to write home about. Most of our listings are either expired or about to expire, so let's clear the cobwebs and get those back up. Now, let's talk about the frayed knots. No movement there, unfortunately. The market shifted so suddenly after the buyout last episode that they've just stalled. Still, I'll relist them at the current market value, which is still nearly 4 times what they were going for originally. If they sell, that's a huge win. If not, well, we'll keep hold of them for now and ride the storm. The pale skinny is going back up too, but this time with a slight discount. That way, anyone window shopping might be tempted to place a cheeky bid over the competition. As for the copper bolts, weirdly, they haven't sold at all. This might be a sign that market's starting to dry up, or maybe other players have caught wind of the Goldbound challenge like myself and started running similar loops. If that's the case, awesome, but it also means that we may shift our tactics soon. While relisting the cobalt mining mallet, I noticed we actually control the entire market on this item right now, which is quite funny. Not bad for a week's grind, eh? Forest Light Fingers' fingerless gloves have been undercut hard, so we'll match the current listing and cross our fingers. Same thing with a small wooden hammer. The market's a little crowded, but we'll toss ours on into the mix and hope for a bite. After sorting some random greys, whites and greens, I finally gave up on the live boots from Morganger Sly. They're a guaranteed drop and haven't sold once, so they've been sent to the vendor for some guaranteed silver from now on. With that out of the way, it's time to hit the loop again. Mining, herbing, rare hunting and pickpocketing. The Elwynn circuit we built up over the last 2 episodes is still holding strong, and it's time to stock back up again. So without further ado, cue the montage music.
I don't believe the master is expecting you. Stop troubling the master's guest.
Sorry about that, I may have got a little bit carried away. Anyway, so after running another round of our now well-worn Elwynn loop, I had a bit of a thought. Let's head back to the auction house and cancel our current frayed knots listings. We're being undercut pretty heavily right now, and there's no point waiting around while they just sit there gathering dust. We'll relist them at all the new market price, which is still nearly double what they originally went for. If we can move even a few, it'll be a solid profit. Now, those transmog items still aren't shifting either, so let's try to take the initiative. I'm going to undercut the competition. Not by a huge margin, but enough to get eyes on my listings. If this strategy lands even 1 or 2 sales, that'll still progress towards our WoW token goal, and every gold counts. After another session grinding mats and sweeping up odds and ends across the zone, I figured it was time for something new. The server economy is shifting, so it's time to adapt. I dropped mining and herbalism and picked up skinning and leatherworking instead. Will it work? No idea. But in Goldbound, we try everything. Sadly, the footage of this little experiment got corrupted while filming, but here's how it went down. After a solid ball culling session, I ended up with a respectable haul of light leather and scraps. I checked the auction averages for the basic hand-stitched leather gear that you can make at low level, and while the sale rates weren't exactly lightning fast, the prices were actually decent. So I went ahead, crafted 1 of each and tossed them on the auction house to see if anyone bites. Outside of those starter pieces though, I couldn't spot anything else that looked like it'd be worth the mats right now. So, while our handful of test items are up for sale, I'm going to drop leatherworking for the time being, and if a worthwhile recipe pops up later, we can always dust off the skinning knife and jump back in. Now, while pondering Elwynn's economic downturn, I had a hunch. At the time of recording, the new Ghosts of Koresh patch just dropped in retail. That likely means more players are off chasing new content rather than browsing the auction house or sniping transmod deals. Which is fair, new shiny content always takes centre stage, which is very understandable. But for us Goldbound players stuck in Elwynn, it means we've just got to get more creative. Time to roll the dice on something new. While making my way for Elwynn, I suddenly remembered there's a tailoring trainer tucked away in Eastvale logging camp. Maybe it's a long shot, but let's head over and see if we can turn a needle and thread into a bit of gold. Looking over the tailoring recipes I had on hand, bolts of linen cloth aren't looking too hot right now. The market value was already low and it's dropped by another 30% recently. Not exactly inspiring stuff. Once again, it looks like the real moneymakers here are the transmogs. The brown linen shirt, for example, can fetch a decent chunk if it sells. I remember there's being a few other low-level shirts and outfits worth trying, so I dig through my saved cloth scraps and start turning them into bolts to see what we can unlock. We've already got white linen shirt, so let's add the brown linen shirt, blue linen shirt, red linen shirt, the simple dress, and a few other odds and ends. Time to fly over to the profession vendor and see what else is worth crafting. Right away, linen bags don't seem worth the effort. The price just isn't there. The simple dress though, the price is decent, even if the sale rate is low, so I'll make a few and see what happens. I also whip up a selection of different shirts for a variety and toss them on the auction house for a little transmog roulette. While I'm at it, I dig into the side projects, a few random cooking recipes I levelled at the inn, some fish I caught out back to bump up my fishing skill, and even a few bits of vendor trash cluttering up my bags. Oh, and I've been sitting on a red linen robe recipe that dropped from a random mob. The mats are cheap, the potential price is around 200 gold each, so let's make a couple of those too for the auction house stockpile. If they sell, that's a tidy little profit for almost no investment. Time to shake things up a bit. Instead of sticking to our usual farming loop or doing professions, I decided to just kill anything with a pulse in Elwynn. Wolves, murlocs, kobolds. If it moved, it got looted. Even the occasional rare spawn didn't escape if they happened to wander in my path. Along the way, I picked up a handful of meat and other cooking ingredients. Since cooking and fishing don't take up the profession slot, I figured now was a good time as any to start leveling them up. Getting these maxed early could pay off later in the challenge. So, I headed over to the Lion's Pride Inn's kitchen, rolled up my sleeves and started cooking up a proper feast. If nothing else, at least Goldgated won't be going hungry on this gold grinding journey. Since we've already parted ways with level working, it's time to let skiing go too, and return to what we actually know works. Sure, there's no massive markup on these materials we can gather, but the sales are consistent, and consistent gold is exactly what we need. So, I picked herbalism back up, dusted off my gathering bags, and jumped straight back into the grind. Ores, herbs, whatever I could get my hands on, piled into the bank, ready to keep our gold trickling in while we push forward towards our goal. Between grind session recordings, I decided to see if there was any decent gathering related add-ons that could make my life a little easier, specifically something that would show me how many herbs and ores I had in my inventory right on the screen, so I didn't have to keep digging through my bags mid-grind. That's when I stumbled across a little add-on called Gathering Tracker. Super simple, you just select what you want to track and boom, there's a clean on-screen counter ticking away as you gather. And that got me thinking, if I can see my progress in real time, why not set myself a new challenge? Something bigger, bolder and slightly more insane. So, here's the plan. With some of our usual income streams drying up, I'm going to gather 10,000 herbs right here in Elwynn Forest. Even if we just sell them raw on the auction house, I'm estimating we could be looking at least 30,000 gold if luck's on our side. We're already sitting at just over 200 herbs, so let's get to it. I didn't have a huge amount of playtime each day during this stretch, but I made sure to squeeze in as much herb gathering around Elwynn as possible over the course of the week. It was definitely a grind. Slow, steady, and a little repetitive, of course, but there was something really satisfying about watching the herb counter at the top of the screen creep higher and higher. Every stack brought us a little closer to our goal. While we're flying through Elwynn Forest gathering herbs, let's take a moment to dive deep into the history and lore of this iconic zone. Elwynn isn't just a beginner-friendly starting area, it's the heart of the human kingdom of Stormwind, and one of the most storied regions in all of Azeroth. Back in 2006, when World of Warcraft first launched, Elwynn Forest immediately became a home for countless adventurers stepping into Azeroth for the very first time. Northshire Abbey, located near the river, served as a training ground for young human recruits, constantly on the lookout for threats from kobolds and Blackrock orcs that lurked in the surrounding hills and caves. Travelling south, Goldshire might look quaint and peaceful today, but back then it was far from a sleepy village. Bandits roamed the roads, gnolls poached the forests, and murlocs haunted the lakes and streams. Every path carried danger, and every quest given to a new adventurer tied them into the greater story of the human kingdom. Completing these early quests wasn't just about leveling, it was about participating in the ongoing struggle of humans trying to rebuild after the First War. Stormwind, just west of Elwynn, has been ravaged by the orcs during the First War and was slowly restoring its strength. The city stood as a beacon of hope, a hub for trade, politics and adventurers alike. From Elwynn, you could see the shadow of the wider world, the looming threat of the Horde to the east and south, and the mysteries of Westfall and beyond beckoning in the distance. For players in Classic WoW, this was the zone where the story of the Alliance truly began. Even today, when we walk, fly, or ride through Elwynn, we can feel its rich history. Every forest glade, every farm, every path and cave tells a story. The kobolds digging in the hills, the gnolls patrolling near the Stonecairn Lake, and the bandits in the Westfall borderlands all carry echoes of the world as it was in Classic. These were the monsters and challenges that shaped a generation of players and set the tone for the adventures that awaited them in Azeroth. So while our herb grind might seem a little like farming materials for gold, it's also a journey through history. We're not just collecting Silverleaf, Peacebloom or Earthroot, we're walking in the footsteps of thousands of adventurers who first learned the ropes in this very forest back in 2006. And every quest, every rare spawn, every corner of the forest reminds us why Elwynn Forest isn't just a starting zone, it's the gateway to everything Azeroth has to offer. As I carried on with the herb grind, I started to notice a bit of a pattern. The spread of herbs across Elwynn seemed heavily weighted towards Silverleaf, while Peacebloom and Earthroot were showing up at about the same rates, but much lower. Now, this might be just because of the route I was taking. I've been sticking to the same loop we mapped out back in the early episodes, but it's worth noting because it directly affects the auction house. Silverleaf might not be the most valuable herb on paper, but when you're pulling in so much more of it compared to the others, it evens out into a steady income stream. Meanwhile, Peacebloom and Earthroot are rarer to come by on this route, so while they fetch a slightly better price per piece, they're much slower to stock up on. It's one of those situations where you've got to balance consistency versus value, and right now, Silverleaf is carrying most of the weight in our gold grind. It's small observations like this that remind me that every decision, even something as simple as a path I take, could be the difference between inching closer to the WoW token or stalling out. Finally, after what feels like endless days of circling Elwynn on Snowy, scooping up herb after herb and nearly losing my sanity in the process, we hit the mark. 10,000 herbs. After all that, my eyes might be permanently green from staring at herbs, but hey, we actually hit 10,000. With the grind behind us and this mini challenge now officially wrapped up, it's time to do what this whole run is about, turning hard work into gold. So let's get the herbs on the auction house and see how much coin we can squeeze into our pouch. Every sale is another step closer to our goal. with the herbs listed at what I think are solid prices, the grind is finally out of my hands. All that's left now is to wait and hope the mailbox is bursting with gold when we log back in. If even half of these stacks sell, we'll be another big step closer to our WoW token.
The next morning.
So, it's a brand new day and we're back on Goldgated. The first stop is the mailbox. Time to see if all that herb grinding actually paid off. And wow, just look at that pile of sales. The grind was worth it after all. Let's crack open the mail and count it up. Could this be the moment we finally break 100k gold? Yes, we've raked in a total of 105,287 gold, our biggest jump yet. Now, as always, let's crunch the numbers and check the current WoW token price to see exactly how much closer we are to the big goal since the end of episode 2. So, with our current total at 105,287 gold and the WoW token sitting at 406,063 gold, up slightly since the last episode, we're now approximately 25.9% of our way to our goal. That's a solid jump of 11.2% since we wrapped up episode 2. Every stack counts and we're making steady progress. Let's check our slash played to see how much time that the 10,000 herb grind has taken us. We're now at 2 days, 23 hours and 8 minutes on Goldgated. Nearly a full day more since we last checked. That's some serious dedication, and it really shows just how epic this grind has been. And that wraps up the session on the Goldbound challenge. Huge thanks to everyone who's been following along and cheering Goldgated on from the sidelines. Your support really means a lot. If you've got any tips, tricks, or gold making ideas for Elwynn, drop them in the comments. I read every single one. So, whether you're farming, fighting, or forging ahead, stay sharp and stay golden. And I'll see you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Goldbound episode 4. If you're new here, this is the ultimate gold making challenge with one big twist. I'm locked to Elwynn Forest until I've earned enough gold, entirely within the zone, to buy a WoW token. No outside help, no world tours, just me, my professions, and the grind. The only exceptions, I can leave briefly to post and collect auctions, and once I finally earn the gold for that WoW token, the lock is lifted. Before we dive in, just a quick note. If I sound a little different this time, that's because my whole household has been under the weather recently, myself included. It's been a rough week, and I haven't had much time to play as I normally would. So this episode might end up being a little bit shorter than usual, but don't worry, the grind continues, and we're still making progress towards the WoW token. Last time in episode 3, we set ourselves a huge goal, gathering 10,000 herbs inside Elwynn. It was slow, steady, and honestly a little soul crushing at times, but in the end we hit the target, and crashed out big. The mailbox was overflowing, and for the first time we broke 100,000 gold as a milestone. That puts us about 25.9% of the way to the WoW token goal, with nearly 3 days of playtime sunk into Goldgated already. Now, in episode 4, we're doubling down. New strategies, new experiments, and hopefully another big step closer to a token goal. So let's jump in. After spending what felt like an eternity staring at herbs last episode, I think it's safe to say I won't be touching Peace Bloom or Silverleaf for a little bit anyway. If I even look at another herb right now, I might end up with full blown PTSD. So, for episode 4 we're pivoting. Herbalism is getting dropped, at least for now, and we're going back to one of the cornerstones of the entire grind, copper ore. From the very start of Goldbound, copper has been one of the most reliable sellers, whether smelted into bars for blacksmiths and engineers, or left raw for people leathering professions. The demand never really dies. And compared to herbs, the sale rate is often steadier, fewer spikes, less fertility, just consistent gold trickling in. Exactly what we need right now. This episode, we'll see just how much mileage you can squeeze out of a copper market in Elwynn. Can this old staple carry us forward towards that WoW token goal, or has the competition finally caught up? Let's find out. Since we're officially pivoting back into mining, I've gone ahead and added the copper ore to our gathering tracker. That way, just like with the herbs last time, we can keep a real-time counter tracking away as we grind. We'll also add any gems while we're mining to this tally soon when we get some. No big 10,000 copper challenge just yet though, I'm not that crazy, at least not today. But tracking it will help us stay focused and see exactly how much ore we're piling up each session. With the tracker ready, it's time to hit Elwynn Circuit again. Cobalt caves, rocky ridges, and those tucked away veins along the hills. If there's copper buried under the zone, we're digging it up. The plan is simple. Stack up as much raw ore as we can, then decide whether to sell it as it is or smelt it into bars for a steadier margin. Either way, we're banking on Elwynn's bedrock to keep the gold rolling in. So let's get our trusty pickaxe out and see how much copper we can haul. While I'm out here mining copper, I'm also making a habit to slip back into the old favourite, pickpocketing the device bandits scattered around the zone. It keeps the grind from getting stale, and more importantly, it helps rebuild our stockpile of frayed knots. Now, if you remember from earlier episodes, the knot market went wild for a while, then completely stalled. But the good news is, prices have finally started to stabilise again. The panic is over, the buyout wave has passed, and the economy for these little scraps is creeping back towards its normal range. That means it's the perfect time to start building a fresh stack. If we can tuck away a few dozen of these, while also pulling in ore, we'll be in a great spot to start pushing sales again on the auction house. Nothing flashy, nothing explosive, but steady profit that keeps it itching closer to that WoW token. So the grind continues. Copper veins for the bars, bandits for the knots, 2 cornerstone markets, 1 Elwynn circuit. After a while grinding, I decided to swing back over to the mailbox to see how things are looking, and, well, it's a mixed bag. We've had a few sales trickle in here and there, but nothing massive. Unfortunately, we still haven't landed any of those big transmog flips I've been banking on, which is definitely a little bit disappointing. Still, I'm not giving up on them just yet. These items might move slowly, but the payoff is huge when they do. It's all about patience, I guess. Stick to your guns, keep them listed, and eventually someone out there is going to want the rare piece for their collection. At least, that's the plan. For now though, let's get everything tidied up. We'll relist the expired auctions, toss up anything that's been sitting in our bags from the grind, and make sure the auction house is stacked before heading back out. Even if the mailbox wasn't bursting with gold this time, every relist is another chance for those coins to roll in. With the bags cleared and the auction sorted, it's time to head back to the mines, our old stomping grounds. Elwynn might not have much to offer compared to the wider world of Azeroth, but if there's one thing the forest does well, it's copper. So for this episode, I'm going to set myself a smaller goal than last time. 5,000 ores. Not a crazy grind till you drop kind of target like the herbs last time, but something that's big enough to actually move the needle onto our goal. Whether we smelt them into bars or keep them raw on the market, the plan is simple. Dig deep, fill the bags, and let the auction house work its magic. And hey, who knows, maybe along the way we'll get some lucky gem drops or extra goodies that sweeten the deal. So, let's pick up the pickaxe and see how much progress we can carve out in Elwynn's bedrock. The 5,000 ore grind starts now. Alright, quick tracker check, and it looks like we're hitting just over 2,600 ores mined so far. That's just over the halfway mark to our goal. The bags are definitely feeling it, and honestly, so am I, but the grind's paying off. The ore stacks are piling up, and the mailbox should look a whole lot healthier once we start moving. It's not glamorous, it's not flashy, but this is the backbone of the Goldbound challenge. Every vein we tap, every stack we sell, pushes us closer to our goal. Slow and steady wins the race, as they say. Now, let's dig in and push the second half of this grind out. With a solid stack of frayed knots building up from all the pickpocketing, it's time to make a quick detour back to the auction house. These little scraps might not look like much, but when the market is healthy, they can add up fast. So let's throw the whole batch upon the auction house and see if we can turn them into a nice little boost for our gold total. Even if they don't all sell straight away, it's about keeping the wheels turning, steady auctions, steady profit. It feels good to finally have knots moving again after that market slump, and if these go, it'll give us the momentum we need heading into the next grinding session. While those frayed knots sit on the auction house, it's back to the grind for us. More copper veins, more bandits, more gold trickling in. But as I'm running this Elwynn circuit for the 1000th time, I can't help but think about the future. Because let's be real, every ore we mine and every knot we sell is bringing us that little step closer to the goal. And with that comes a huge milestone, unlocking our very first new zone. Looking at the map, we've got a few clear contenders. Westfall is right on our doorstep, packed with quests, resources, and of course, the dead mines. Lakeshire is another option. It's a bit of a trek, but opens up fresh opportunities, and thanks to the deep run tram, we could even go to Dunmoreau, which comes with its own dungeon in Nomagon to shake things up. Now, you might be wondering, why not Duskwood? Well, as Pathorelix found out in one of his earlier runs, you actually can't step into Duskwood without first passing through Lakeshire, since the bridge into the zone technically counts as Redridge. So, unfortunately, that'll have to wait. So those are the options on the table when the time finally comes. Westfall, Lakeshire or Dunmoreau. Each with its own perks, each with its own risks. So what do you think? Where should Goldgate set its sights once Elwynn is finally behind us? Let me know in the comments because I'd love to hear your takes on this one. Some of the auctions we've got up right now are creeping close to their expiry, so I figured, why not do something a little different this time? Instead of waiting until the very end, let's crack open the mailbox early and see where we stand. This way, if more sales come through later in the episode, we'll have a chance to check again and get a proper before and after snapshot of how our gold is growing. Kind of like a mid-episode progress report, I guess. So, let's open it up, take stock of what's sold so far, and then get everything reposted to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. And hey, if we snag a few more sales by the time we wrap this grind, we'll open it up again to see what the grand total looks like. Looks like this is taking up to us a respectable 152k so far. Not bad at all, slowly but surely we're reaching towards our goal again. At the moment, I've also got around 75 frayed knots sitting on the auction house. I'll be keeping a close eye on these since the market does shift quite a bit, and I'll be relisting as needed to stay competitive. The hope is that once they start moving again, they'll give us a nice bump to the gold total. In the meantime, copper ore is still going to be our bread and butter. It might not be flashy, but those guaranteed sales are what keeps the progress steady when transmog and other slower markets don't deliver. So between knots and copper, we've got two reliable streams to lean on as we push forward. So let's keep things simple for a while and run an old-fashioned loop, copper ore mining and pickpocketing. But before we dive back into the grind, I'm going to relist our stack of frayed knots. I've noticed the market for these is getting a little volatile again lately, with more and more knots popping up on the auction house. That could mean people are starting to catch on from them being a decent gold maker, or maybe a few others are trying to do this challenge too. Either way, we'll need to stay sharp and make sure ours is priced competitively to keep the sales rolling in. Once that's done, it's back into Elwynn for the loop, mining veins, lifting pockets, and letting the gold slowly stack up. Nothing fancy, but steady, reliable progress towards the goal. I'll be honest, I'm not super happy with the amount of sales we've had this episode. The auction house just hasn't been as kind as I'd hoped, and the gold total felt like it was lagging behind. So, I rolled myself out of bed long enough to squeeze in a quick miniature grind, a mix of copper ore and a few herbs, just to give things one last push before we wrap up. Nothing massive, but enough to pad out the bags and hopefully pad out the mailbox too. It's not glamorous, but sometimes the reality of the grind is, when sales stall, you've just got to dig in and keep gathering until the numbers tick back up. After running a loop for a little while longer, I decided to head back and check the mailbox one last time before wrapping things up. And sure enough, a few more sales had come through since we last looked. Nothing massive, but definitely enough to give our total a nice little boost. All that being said, that puts us at a total of 160,114 gold by the end of this episode. So let's go over the totals and compare it to last episode to see how close we are compared to our goal. Looking at the current WoW token price, which is 380,406 gold, that means we're now currently 42% of our way to the goal. That is an increase of 16.1% since last episode. That's not a bad haul at all, and more frequently, it means the strategy is working. Copper ore is pulling its weight, Frayed knots are finally starting to slowly sell again, and the foundation we're building here in Elwynn is only getting stronger. Oh, and I almost forgot. Let's check our slash played for this session. We're now sitting at 3 days, 22 hours and 49 minutes total on Gold Gated. That 4-day mark is looming for sure. It really puts it into perspective just how much time has gone into this challenge so far, and we're still not even close to that WoW token goal yet. And that's where we'll wrap it up for episode 4 of Goldbound. This one's been a grind heavy chapter for sure, copper veins, pickpocketing knots, and even last minute push to squeeze in some more herbs. It might not even have been our flashiest session at all, but every sale, every stack, every grind loop gets us closer to our WoW token. We're now sitting at over 150,000 gold with the 4-day mark looming around the corner. That's a huge milestone in itself, and it really shows the weight of this challenge, but also just how far we've come since starting in Northshire. Next time, we'll keep the wheels turning, knots, copper, and maybe even some more fresh experiments if the market gives us an opening. Until then, stay sharp, stay golden, and I'll see you next time. Welcome back everyone to another episode of the Goldbound Challenge. Before we dive into this one, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for continued support on the series. The feedback, the comments, it's honestly been incredible to see how many of you are invested in this little gold making adventure through Elwynn Forest. Now, if you missed episode 4, here's a quick recap. Last time we focused heavily on copper ore, setting ourselves a goal of 5,000 total ores mined. And by the end of it, we managed to push ourselves to 160,114 gold. We also kept those frayed knots flowing on the auction house, and even though the sales were a bit slow, we made steady progress overall, creeping ever so closer to our goal. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder of the challenge rules. We're locked entirely within Elwynn Forest. No leaving the zone for any reason. All of our gold, all of our items, and all of our progress has to be earned right here. No outside help, no trading with other players, and no shortcuts. To earn enough gold to buy a WoW token. When we do that, we can unlock another zone and start the challenge again. Now that we're all caught up, let's get back to work on episode 5. It's going to be a good one. This time, we're getting back to basics. No experiments, no fancy strategies, just old-fashioned grinding. Frayed knots, copper ore, and herbs. The 3 pillars that have carried us this far in the challenge. So let's get to it. Alright, so let's be honest for a second. I feel like I've been in Elwynn Forest forever. Don't get me wrong, I love this zone. The golden fields, the familiar music, the nostalgia. But at this point, I could probably draw every copper vein and herb spawn on the map just from memory. And here's the thing. I know I'm taking too long to reach the WoW token goal. I can feel it. Some of that is just the grind itself, sure. But part of it is me dragging my feet and losing momentum. Burning out a little if I am honest. And I do hate that. Because I want to get to the next zone. I want to see the Gold Gated finally step out of Elwynn Forest and breathe new air. So this episode, I'm done overthinking it. We're going to do no experiments, no side goals or distractions, just pure old-fashioned brute force grinding. It's not glamorous, it's not flashy, but sometimes that's what gold making really is. Putting your head down and grinding through the burnout. Because every swing of the pickaxe, every frayed knot, and every piece bloom picked all adds up. This episode, I'm getting that fire back. So let's dig in, literally. With that out of the way, it's time to get back to what Gold Gated does best, the grind. No gimmicks, no shortcuts, no fancy side experiments, just the holy trinity of Elwynn gold making. We're starting with the classic Elwynn loop. Mine the ridges, sweep through the meadows for herbs, and pickpocket every defiant bandit unlucky enough to cross our path. It's the same circuit we've run countless times before, but this time the goal is focus. No detours, no maybe I'll try this instead, just raw, efficient farming. But as I'm running a route again, there's this moment where I have to stop and think. Yeah, I'm frustrated, I am. I feel like progress is slowed down, like we should have been out of Elwynn by now. But when I take a step back and really look at it, we've actually come a long way. We've built a foundation from nothing. We've pushed past burnout, figured out new markets, and kept the gold steadily flowing, all without leaving this tiny patch of Azeroth. That is something worth being proud of at least. So, on reflection, Let's do this together. Let's push through this wall the same way we've done since day one, side by side. Let's get our heads down, keep the grind alive, and get ourselves geared up for the next chapter. Because the day we finally step out of Elwynn's borders, it's going to hit that much harder, knowing we earned every single coin the hard way. After doing a decent little grind, I decided to swing by the mailbox, but this time I'm not going to open it just yet. From what I can already see, we've had a few sales come through. A handful of frayed knot stacks, some of the herbs and ore from the tail end of last episode, and even a few of those lower level transmog pieces finally moved off the shelves. Still nothing huge like a big ticket transmog sale, but definitely signs of life, and every little helps. As tempting as it is to crack this open right now, I think I'm going to hold off until the end of the episode. I want to see the full picture of what the grind has done for us once everything's had a little bit more time to sell. That way, when we finally open it, we'll get the real sense of how much progress we've made this session. No half measures, just the whole payoff at once. It's actually kind of motivating in a weird way. Knowing there's gold slowly building up in the mailbox gives us something to push forward towards. A reason to mine one more vein, pick one more pocket, or gather one more herb before calling it a day. We'll check it properly at the end of the episode, tally it all up as we usually do, and see where the grind has taken us. For now though, let's stay focused. Alright, just taking a deep breath. We've been at this for a long time now, and honestly, it's easy to lose sight of how far we've come when all you see ahead of you is more grind. But this is what Gold Gated was always about, the long haul. A slow climb, turning what should be impossible into progress, one tiny sale at a time. I'll be real with you. There are days when I question if I've dragged my feet too long in Elwynn. Days where I feel like the gold toll should be higher, that we should already be unlocking the next zone. The truth is, every copper vein, every herb, every frayed knot has been adding up, even when it doesn't feel like it. This isn't a flashy sprint, it's a marathon. And marathons aren't about speed, they're about endurance. And showing up even when you're tired of the route, tired of the scenery, tired of the grind. But eventually, all that consistency does pay off. So in reflection, yeah, maybe it's been a bit slower than I'd have liked. But look at where we started, and look at where we are now. Over 160,000 gold deep, a few days of slash played, and still standing strong in the same patch of forest we began in. That's not failure, that's persistence. So here's the plan. We keep our heads down, stick to what we know best, and grind our way through this wall together. You've all been with me since day one, cheering me on at every twist, every copper vein, every mailbox moment, and I can't thank you enough for that. So let's dig in, side by side, and keep pushing until Elwynn finally gives up its last bit of gold. Because when that WoW token drops, it's not just my victory, it's ours. While the grind's been rolling on, I've started to take a bit more care with how I'm managing storage, especially in the bank. I've been keeping hold of a few different things lately. Raw cooking ingredients, stacks of linen and wool scraps if I can find any, and even some of the random gems we picked up from mining. Now, sure, I could throw these on the auction house for some quick gold, but I've got a feeling that these might maybe come in handy later on. Once we finally unlock our next zone, we'll have access to new materials, new recipes, and maybe even a chance to craft some items to sell for a profit later. So rather than liquidating everything for a few extra coins, I'm holding on to the things that might scale with us. Think of it as a future proofing of the challenge. When the next chapter begins, whether it's Westfall, Lakeshire or Dunbarrow, I want to be ready to hit the ground running, not scrambling to buy back materials I already sold. It's all part of the long game, I guess. Every grind session in Elwynn might feel repetitive, but the foundation we're building here is what's going to make these future markets explode when we finally break free of this forest. Even though we're still knee deep in Elwynn's Forest, I'd be lying if I said my mind hasn't started to wander towards what comes next. Every swing of the pickaxe, every bandit pocket we lift, it all gets me thinking. What kind of new opportunities are waiting for us once we finally unlock that next zone? Last episode, we briefly covered what the next zone could be. So let's start with Westfall. Probably the most iconic and natural step from Elwynn in my opinion. The place is packed with rich copper and tin veins, peace bloom and mage royale herbs, and an endless stream of humanoids to pickpocket and farm for materials. Plus, there's the Dead Mines, one of the best early dungeons in the game, loaded with transmog potential, rare BOEs, and even a few unique recipes that could fetch a small fortune. It's rugged, nostalgic, and full of that classic energy that makes you want to grind for hours. Westfall will definitely feel like a spiritual continuation of what we've been doing here, but turned up a notch. Then we've got Dunmoreau, and honestly, that one is tempting as well. Snow-covered cliffs, dense ore routes, an entirely different economy up north. The tin and silver veins there tend to have a solid resale value early on, and the mobs drop a ton of light and medium leather, which could be a huge plus if we ever pivot into leatherworking or start flipping crafted goods. Not to mention Nomagon, a gold mine for rare patterns, unique items, and quirky little engineering drops. It's cold, harsh, and a little isolated, but it's bursting with opportunity for someone willing to put the work in. And finally, there's Lakeshire, sitting out in Redridge. It's a bit higher level, sure, but that's what makes it exciting. Rich iron deposits, mid-tier herbs like King's Blood, solid humanoid camps for pickpocketing, and a huge lake that could become a gold mine for fishing, and yes, junk boxes too. That's a market we haven't even scratched yet. Plus, being closer to Dustwood opens up more complex trade routes and potential cross-zone economics. It's the kind of place that could really shake things up once we're ready to take that leap. Each of these zones represents something different. Westfall is the logical next grind, Dunmoreau is a smart economy play, and Lakeshire is the risk versus reward adventure that could completely redefine the challenge. But first, we've got to earn it. Elwynn's still got work left to do, and until we cross that threshold, all these dreams of snow, coastlines and mountain passes are just that, dreams. Okay, a moment of truth. We've been grinding, relisting, and staying consistent all episode long. Now it's time to see if that effort is actually paid off. Let's crack open the mailbox and take a look. Okay, that's not bad at all. Ignoring a mountain of expired auctions we opened, we've got a nice spread of sales this time. A few solid stacks of frayed knots, plenty of copper ore and herbs moving through the market, and even a couple of low-level transmog flips to sweeten the deal. All told, that puts us at a grand total of 214,702 gold, up from last episode's 160,114. That's a massive 34% increase on last episode's total. Now, with the WoW token currently sitting at 400,575 gold, that means we're sitting at roughly 53.59% of the way towards finally breaking out of Elwynn Forest. It might not be a landslide victory this time, but it's real progress, and that's all that matters. Every single auction, every vein, every pocket adds up, and we're inching closer to that big breakthrough. What's also promising is that we still have a decent amount of frayed knots and herbs still on the auction house, which will hopefully sell in the next day or so. Before we wrap up, let's check our slash played time. We're now sitting at 4 days, 21 hours and 22 minutes into the challenge. That 5-day marker is now looming over us. Kinda wild when you think about it. This episode wasn't flashy, no experiments, no side projects, just old-fashioned grind. But honestly, that's what this challenge needed. It's easy to get lost in frustration when the progress slows down. But when I look back at how far we've come since day one, I can't help but feel proud of what we've done so far. Elwynn's been our forge, a place that's tested our patience, persistence and passion. And soon, it'll be our stepping stone to something new. Whether that next step is Westfall, Dunmoreau or Lakeshire. I can feel it. The winds are shifting and adventure is calling. Before I sign off, a couple of quick things. Some of you may have already seen the brand new hardcore WoW survival series called Glory or Death, running alongside this series Goldgated. If you enjoy the raw, unpredictable side of Classic but with a twist, I think you'll love that one. It's live on my channel, so go check it out now. We also now have a community Discord open to everyone. Whether you're here for Goldgated, Glory or Death, or just to chat all things Warcraft, MMORPGs, or anything gaming related, you're welcome to join. I'd love to see you there. So, that's where we stand. The grind continues, the forge stays lit, and the dream of that WoW token increases closer every day. And as always, until then, stay sharp, stay golden, and thanks for watching. Welcome back everyone to another episode of the Goldbound Challenge. It's good to see you all again. I just want to start off by saying a huge thank you to everyone who's been following along the journey so far. The comments, the encouragement, the advice, it genuinely keeps me going through the grind. So, from the bottom of my dwarven heart, thank you. Now, if you missed episode 5, here's a quick recap. Last time, we stripped things back to the basics. No experiments, no side projects, just pure old-fashioned grinding. Copper ore, herbs, and frayed knots. The 3 pillars of the Elwynn gold making circuit. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Big time. By the end of the episode, our total gold had climbed up to 214,702. A huge step up from where we started. We even saw some consistent movement on the auction house. Frayed knot stacks selling nicely. Herbs and ore shifting through the market. And even a few low-ticket transmog pieces finally finding buyers. The gold might not have come in one big jackpot, but it came steady, and that's what matters. By the end, we were sitting at just over 53% of the way towards the WoW token, with nearly 5 full days of playtime inside Elwynn Forest. That's a lot of pickpocketing, mining, and auction posting for this little zone, but it's progress, and that's what this challenge is all about. So here we are, episode 6. The fire's still lit, the grind's still alive, and that WoW token is closer than ever. Let's see if this episode is where Elwynn finally starts to give up its last bits of gold. I'll be honest with you guys, last episode I hit the wall. The grind had started to blur together, and Elwynn was beginning to feel less of a home and more like a cage. But after stepping away for a bit and clearing my head, I realised something important. We've actually done really well so far. We've built a foundation. We've turned scraps, junk boxes and copper veins into something that actually resembles progress. So this time, I'm not chasing distractions or gimmicks, no switching professions, no experiments. This is the episode where we dig deep, literally, and remind ourselves that sometimes success isn't about flashy jumps forward, it's about steady, stubborn persistence. Elwynn might have tested my patience, but it hasn't beaten me, not yet. So let's take a deep breath, shake off the dust, and do what we do best. Grind, refine, and inch closer to that first WoW token. One copper vein and frayed knot at a time. Let's make this the turning point, the moment where gold-gated name really starts to mean something. First things first, let's take a look at some of the random greens clogging up our bags. There are some pieces we've been trying to flog on the auction house for what feels like forever now. A few are sold here and there, but nothing worth celebrating, and definitely not enough to justify hanging on to the full collection. So, I've decided it's time to clear the decks a bit. I'm going to sell off all the low value transmog pieces that have been gathering dust, except for the original ones we found way back in the first few episodes. Those pieces feel like part of the gold-gated story at this point. They still haven't sold, sure, but I'm not quite ready to give up on them just yet. If they're still sitting unsold by the time we hit our very first WoW token, then yeah, maybe that'll be the time to let them go and make room for new loot and potential transmog finds in our next zone. For now though, they stay, a little piece of history from where it all began. With those pieces sold out of the way, I emptied the rest of the mailbox, including our full stack of frayed knots that haven't moved yet. I went ahead and sold off all the similar odds and ends too, low level greens, random potions, food items, all of it. From here on out, anything like that is getting vended immediately. It's just not worth the time or bag space at the moment. Now, with those things tidied up, I relisted our 124 frayed knots from last episode. Unfortunately, the market for these has completely screeched to a halt. What used to be one of our biggest money makers has slowed right down. Still, I'm not ready to give on them just yet. I'll keep relisting whatever I can and keep our fingers crossed. Markets bounce back, and when they do, I want to be ready. A kind subscriber actually left a really helpful comment on one of my recent videos. They mentioned that posting too many of the same item at once can actually hurt your chances of selling, since you end up competing with yourself on the auction house, and honestly, that makes a lot of sense. So, taking that advice on board, I've changed things up. From now on, I'm only listing 1 or 2 of each transmog at a time, and keeping the extras tucked away safely in the bank until they sell. Hopefully, That helps keep our prices stable and maybe even boosts our odds of getting a few more of those pieces to finally move. Big thanks to this commenter for the recommendation. I really appreciate it. So I think it's time we get back to what's always worked, the grind. Ore and herbs have been the backbone of this entire challenge since day one. They always sell, no matter what's happening with the market. They're steady, reliable, and they keep the gold trickling in even when everything else slows down. Frayed knots have been a huge boost for us, sure, but the market's just too unpredictable. People like to buy them all out, flip them for profit, and then out of nowhere, they'll just stop selling entirely for days at a time. It's unstable, and right now, what we need is consistency. So, we're heading back to the basics. Mining, gathering, and keeping that grind alive. So, the tracker counter's on, and we're ready to roll. I don't have a set goal for this session just yet. I think I'm just going to keep going until I drop this time. After that burst of motivation for last episode, I'm feeling more determined than ever. So it's time to lock in, throw on some grind music, and just go. I'm skipping the frayed knots for now until the market picks up again, which honestly makes the Elwynn loop a little bit easier. No pickpocketing detours, no inventory clutter, just pure focused efficiency. Mining, herbing, selling, repeating. Back to the basics. Just how it should be, right? As I'm running a loop again, I can't help but notice just how much the economy here in Elwynn has changed since the start of this challenge. When we first kicked this off, everything had value. Copper bolts, frayed knots, even the odd light leather scrap could pull a few gold here and there. It felt like every item that dropped had a purpose, a market, and a buyer waiting somewhere out there to buy it. But now, the gold making options have really started to narrow down. Light leather barely sells at all. Pigments from inscription just don't fetch enough to justify the time. And even those rough copper bolts we crafted back in the early days, their prices have completely tanked. It's wild how much the market shifted, even inside one small zone. Part of that might be just natural market fluctuation, but I think there's something else at play here too. I've started to notice more and more people popping up in Elwynn running similar routes, selling the same items, even farming the same mobs. And honestly, I love seeing that. It means people are giving a challenge a shot themselves, but it also means the supply and demand balance has been completely thrown off. When everyone's farming the same materials and posting on the auction house at once, it drives the price straight into the ground. What used to be a hidden gold maker suddenly became oversaturated, and the profits just vanished overnight. It's a small scale crash, right here in Elwynn of course. That's why, even after all this time, ore and herbs have remained the backbone of the challenge. They're simple, reliable, and always sell. Whether you're in Elwynn, the Barrens, or halfway across Azeroth, they don't rely on hype, or trends, or lucky buyers. They're just consistent. And honestly, that's what makes me even more excited for the next zone. Because once we finally unlock it, we'll get access to fresh materials, new mobs, new opportunities, new recipes, and new gold making angles. All of this is waiting just over a border. So while it might look like we're doing the same thing over and over, this is actually just us adapting. We've seen the highs, the crashes, the dried up markets, and the silent mailboxes, all through all of it. And the grind remains the one thing we can control. That's what's keeping this challenge alive, and that's what's going to push us into the next chapter. So yeah, while the Elwynn economy might be in a bit of a weird spot right now, we're not slowing down. The grind doesn't stop just because the markets shift. We adapt, we keep moving, and we find new ways to keep the gold coming in. We're making good progress with the grind at the moment, but we aren't finished yet. We've still got a long road ahead of us, and if there's one thing this challenge has taught me, it's that persistence always pays off in the end. While we carry on with the grind, I wanted to take a quick moment to throw a question your way. Would you guys like to see any other MMO style content on this channel? I've been toying with the idea of doing a few one-off videos where I jump into a different MMO, maybe one I've never played before, and give my honest thoughts after a few hours of gameplay. Sort of a first impressions from a WoW player type of thing. If that's something you'd like to see, let me know in the comments, and maybe drop a few MMOs you'd like me to check out first. Also, for those of you who don't know, I've recently launched a new series alongside Goldgated, the Glory or Death Hardcore Challenge. It's a pure survival series set in classic WoW, where every decision can be my last. It's a ton of fun to record so far, and it's a completely different kind of experience compared to this slow, methodical grind of Goldgated. I'd love to hear what you think of it so far, and on top of that, some of you already know I'm big into Dungeons and Dragons as well. I'm currently playing in a weekly D&D campaign after DMing my own campaign for a good few years, so I've been wondering if you'd like to see any D&D related content too. Maybe character builds, campaign stories, or even one-shot adventures with the community someday. You never know. Let me know what you think down below. I always love hearing your thoughts on how we can expand the Firebeard channel and keep building this world together. Alright, enough talking for now. It's time to get back at what we do best. Pickaxes ready, bags empty, eyes on the ore and herbs. Let's keep this Elwynn loop rolling and see how much progress we can stack up before the day is done. Before diving back into Elwynn, let's make a quick detour to the auction house. A few of our items have expired, some low level transmog pieces and a handful of frayed knots, so I'm going to relist them to make everything active. Nothing flashy, just keeping the wheels turning and our presence in the market consistent. Alright, quick checkpoint. Let's see where we've at so far. Not bad at all. Between the herbs and ore, we've already managed to grind over 6,700 in total. That's some solid progress. And it's definitely keeping our gold ticking upward. You know, it's funny. At times, this grind can feel endless, especially after so many episodes. But when I step back and actually look at the numbers, it's impressive how far we've come just by sticking to the basics. Ore and herbs might not be flashy, but they've been the backbone of this challenge since day one. That said, we're not finished yet. There's still plenty of Elwynn left to work through, and every vein, every plant, and every pocket counts. So let's keep our heads down, stay consistent, and see how much more gold we can squeeze out of this forest before we wrap up today's session. I'm going to put on a Zayu stream for some background motivation, and get the rest of this grind smashed out. Ore and herbs, rinse and repeat. Let's see how much we can stack before we decide to call it a day. Alright, I've locked in for a solid session there, and now it's time to see what we've got ready for the auction house. Wow, that isn't bad at all. A grand total of 15,000 herbs and ore. I have to say, that's a really solid effort if I do say so myself. So, let's get all this posted in the auction house and log off for the night. The plan is to come back tomorrow to hopefully see a nice stack of sales waiting in the inbox. Then, we can finally tally up the totals for this episode and see how much progress we've made towards that first WoW token. Alright, it's a brand new day here in Stormwind. Let's head over to the mailbox and see what's sold overnight. This is always the moment of truth. Did all that grinding actually pay off? Okay, not bad at all. We've got a handful of sales here already, herbs and ore, as to be expected. So let's gather it all up and let's see what our new gold total is. We are now sitting at a grand total of 273,830 gold. That's a solid increase of 15.06% from last episode, which honestly feels great considering the market slowdown we've been dealing with lately. Progress is progress, and gold is gold. Now, before we wrap up, let's take a look at the current WoW token price. This week, it's sitting at 398,857 gold, which is actually a little lower than last time we checked. A bit of a dip, but hey, that only works in our favour. So, with our shiny new 273,830 gold, that means we're currently 68.65% of our way towards breaking the boundaries of Elwynn Forest. We're closing the gap, one herb and one ore at a time. A quick check at the auction house shows that yep, our stack of frayed knots is still sitting there for the most part. These bad boys haven't budged this week unfortunately, and it's the same story with most transmog pieces we've got listed right now. Not much love for the fashion game, yet. A quick look at our slash played also reveals we're sitting at a whopping 6 days and 2 hours into the challenge. That's some serious time mining rocks and sniffing flowers. I genuinely wonder what the playtime is going to look like by the time we finally unlock our next zone. And that, my friends, is where we're going to wrap up episode 5 of the Goldbound challenge. Another huge chunk of progress, another step closer to that shiny WoW token, and eventually the sweet freedom of a brand new zone. Thank you all so much for contributing to supporting this series. Now, I want your quick opinion on something important. Would you also like to see occasional live streams of the grind here on YouTube or Twitch? Just hanging out together, mining, chatting, maybe even doing some Q&A while we chip away at the goal? Or do you prefer sticking to the current bi-weekly episode format so all progress is revealed only inside these videos with no spoilers? Let me know down in the comments. Your feedback shapes how we move forward. In the meantime, don't forget we also have the Glory or Death hardcore series running alongside this challenge if you want even more WoW content to binge on. And if you'd like to support the channel further, we now have a Patreon with some cool perks, like access to the Firebeard Discord hall, deeper community polls, exclusive updates, and having your name etched into the Forge Wall of Thanks at the end of future videos. As always, thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and thank you for keeping this adventure alive. Until then, stay sharp, stay golden, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 7 of the Goldbound challenge. It's great to have you all back again.
Apologies for that. It's been Halloween recently, and I was cursed by a necromancer after winning a game of Hearthstone in the tavern. Anyway, before we dive in, I just wanted to say, as always, a massive thank you to everyone who's been tuning in, commenting, and keeping this journey alive week after week. Now, before we get back to work, let's take a quick look at where we left off last time. We pushed through one of the toughest stretches of the challenge yet. The markets were unstable, frayed knots had completely crashed, and Elwynn's economy was starting to feel, well, a little crowded. But instead of throwing in the towel, we went back to what built this series in the first place. The grind. Pure, honest gathering. Copper ore, herbs, and a lot of patience. We cleared out our bags, sold off a pile of junk that would have been sitting around for too long, and kept only what mattered. We even got some smart advice from the community, who reminded us not to flood the auction house with too many of the same item at once. That simple change might just save us a ton of time and gold in the future. By the end of the episode, the hard work had paid off. We finished with a shiny 273,830 gold, putting us at 68.65% of the way towards the first ever WoW token. Not bad for a single zone grind, right? The only downside, frayed knots and transmogs still haven't really moved, and the Elwynn market is feeling tighter than ever. But despite that, our gold keeps climbing. Slow and steady, just how a good grind should be. So here we are, episode 7. The road's been long, the grind's been rough, and that token's closer than it's ever been before. Let's see if this episode is where Elwynn finally starts to give us that last big push. We've got the end in our sights now, so let's get cracking with the Elwynn loop as usual, just like last episode. But this time, we're focusing on farming more frayed knots again. No messing around. I'm hitting the ground running this week. I'm determined to break free of Elwynn. So let's kick things off with a quick montage of my first few days of grinding. So, here we are after one day of grinding. I haven't had as much time to play this week, but when I do get time, I'm just grinding away in the background. It doesn't help that I've got a double eye infection right now, which has left me looking like this staring at the screen. But hey, dedication comes at a price. Moving on to day 2, and we're making solid progress, doing our usual Elwynn loop that's been a staple of the grind since day 1. As I carry on today's grind, let's talk about what our potential gold making options could be in our next zone, now that the finish line is finally in sight. As we discussed in previous episodes, we already know what zones we're coming up to. We have Westfall to the west, of course, Redridge to the east, and Goldgated's homeland, Dunmoreau, on the other side of the Deep Run Tram. When the first WoW token is finally earned, we'll be picking the next zone at random, so I think it's worth considering potential gold making techniques in each area so we can hit the ground running. We'll go in clockwise order, starting up north with Dunmoreau. We'll now have Ironforge to post our auctions instead of Stormwind, which is nice since it'll be close by. In terms of gathering, there isn't anything new here unfortunately. Copper, Silverleaf, Peace Bloom and Earthroot will once again be the cornerstone of the grind. This could take quite a bit of time if Elwynn is anything to go by. There's one positive though, and that's Nomagon. In terms of loot, there are some decent bind on equip items we could try and farm, as well as some random engineering schematics that may drop. That said, we haven't had much luck selling transmogs we've farmed in Elwynn, even some of the rarer ones like a Broodmother's Carapace. Looking further ahead, we'll then have potential access to the wetlands and Loch Modan, which could both be solid options for us after Dunmoreau. Moving on to Redridge, this zone gives us more options for our gathering professions. For herbalism, we'll have Briarthorn, Bruiseweed and Mage Royale, along with our usual Earthroot. This could be great for us depending on the prices on the auction house. For mining, we'll still have copper, but now with the added value of tin and silver. We'll need to check their prices, but I can only assume they'll be at least slightly higher than the price of copper. Funnily enough, fishing might finally come in handy here. The lake has fish pools, and tightly sealed trunks can be fished up too. Those have their own loot table as well. There aren't any dungeons in this zone, but there are some random bind and equip drops from open world mobs that could be worth grinding. Potential zones after this could be interesting, with Duskwood, the Swamp of Sorrows, and the Burning Steppes all being options from here. That could be great if we roll well enough and get a decent result. And last, but no means least, we have Westfall, one of my favourite zones from a nostalgic perspective. Looking at our potential grinds, we've got a strong selection of herbs here: Briarthorn, Bruiseweed, Mage Royale, and even Strangle Kelp. For mining, it's similar to Redridge, with copper, tin and silver ore available. Fishing could also become a solid moneymaker here, with ironbound, tightly sealed and watertight trunks entering the equation. We've also got a good mix of mobs that could drop useful cooking ingredients, things like vulture eggs and coyote meat for example. And who can forget the dead mines? It's changed quite a bit since Classic, with Vanessa Van Cleef taking over the Defias after her father's death. There could be some solid finds here as well when it comes to BOE items, and it'll be a nice change of pace from purely outdoor farming to some dungeon grinding. Looking at the next zones after Westfall, since it's on the coast, our only option from here would be Duskwood, which wouldn't be a bad thing at all. It's an amazing zone with access to some solid farmables, and from there we'd also open up Stranglethorn Vale, which would be incredible. The zone itself is great, but we then have access to a boat in Booty Bay which could take us to Kalimdor. Anyway, before I get ahead of myself, let's get back to reality and see what the second day of grinding has given us. Not bad at all. We've got a decent stack of frayed knots, with our gatherables reaching nearly 5,000 in total, but we still have a long way to go. It's the start of day 3 now, so you know the drill. Let's get smashing some herbs, ore and frayed knots. I'm going to keep going for as long as I can today, despite hardly being able to see. I'm really dedicated to the cause. I feel like a cross-country runner completing a long run, finally beginning to see the finish line over the next field. I want to try and earn this token by the end of this episode. Hopefully we'll have some sales in the mailbox left over from last episode, as the stacks of herbs, ore and frayed knots that didn't sell will give us a hopeful little boost. With all that being said, let's hope the WoW token price hasn't shot up too much. Looking at the charts, it's gone up a little since last episode, so fingers crossed it doesn't increase too much before we reach the gold total. It would feel awful if we ended up a few thousand gold short because of a last minute price hike. Looking back at the first 2 days, it's wild to see how much we've stacked already. Even with limited playtime, it really shows the value of sticking to the Elwynn loop, grinding methodically and staying focused on the goal. It'll be interesting to see what our total playtime is when we finally break free from the boundaries of Elwynn. I think it'll be a good idea to track how long it takes us in each zone, and each time we move on, I may display these times side by side to see if we can beat our previous records. I haven't checked yet, but I can imagine we're already over 7 days played, so I can't even imagine what it's going to be for the next zone. Okay, that's enough eye straining work for one day. Time to head over to the auction house and get everything posted. Looks like the price of frayed knots has dropped a little since last check, which isn't ideal, but that's the nature of the market. No point dwelling on it, I guess. We still have a solid stack of 250 though, so let's get everything listed and ready. Once that's done, I can focus on getting a few more grind sessions in over in the next few days while these start hopefully selling. The goal here is to keep the production line moving and make sure gold keeps flowing, even when I'm offline. Alright, everything's up, the auction house is humming, and our stacks are officially in the hands of potential buyers. Time to log off for the night, get some rest and recharge. Tomorrow it's back to the grind, because this token isn't going to earn itself. Okay, so it's a new day, and I've basically been grinding all day long. We actually had a bit more free time than usual because the family's been busy looking after a new puppy, a golden retriever named Charlie. He's ridiculously cute, and from what I've seen, he's already mastered the art of looking innocent right after causing chaos. Unfortunately, I can't actually go and see him myself, thanks to my lovely animal fur allergy. Combine that with my eye infections I'm still rocking, and well, I've been looking real photogenic right now. But hey, silver linings. If nothing else, it gives me the perfect excuse to close the blinds, fire up a 20-year-old game and grind my heart out. Living the dream, right boys? There's honestly something magical about it though. Making a cup of tea, throwing on some YouTube or Twitch in the background and just zoning in for hours. It takes me right back to the good old days. Now that I'm in my 30s, having a full day just to play feels like a rare treasure. You really learn to appreciate it when it happens. Alright, Right, so I've put in another solid grinding session yesterday and today and got everything listed on the auction house. Now it's time to get on with things and check the mailbox to see what awaits us. This is the moment of truth, the moment we've been grinding towards for days and days of playtime. Has all that work paid off? Have we finally stacked enough gold to buy our first WoW token? Enough to finally break free from the confines of Elwynn Forest? There's only one way to find out. Let's make our way to the mailbox and see just how close or far we are from reaching that long-awaited milestone. A quick check reveals that the current WoW token price is 405,677 gold. We've really pushed ourselves this week, so this could actually be possible. We've got a few solid pages of sales sitting in the mailbox, so let's get to it. Okay, this is looking good. This is looking really good. Yes! That brings our total to 410,570 gold. That is enough. After all the grinding, all the farming, and all the sleepless nights in Elwynn, we've finally done it. Let's not waste a second. We're heading straight to the auction house to grab that token before the price jumps up at the last second. And there it is, our first ever WoW token. The goal we've been chasing since day one. And there we go, our first ever WoW token, sitting right here in our inventory. Man, that feels good. Alright, so now that we finally have our first WoW token sitting safely in our bags, there's only one final thing left to do before we wrap up this episode. We need to decide where we're heading next. As you know, there are 3 zones waiting for us beyond the borders of Elwynn Forest: Westfall, Redridge and Dunmoreau. Each one has its own challenges, grinds and gold making potential, but instead of picking one myself, I thought we'd leave this decision to fate. Now, for those who don't know, in my spare time I also play Dungeons and Dragons, and in D&D your fate is often decided by one of these, a 20-sided die, or as it's known in D&D, a D20. Every roll can change the outcome of a story, for better or for worse. So I figured, what better way to choose our next zone than to let the dice decide for us. Here's how our system will work. If we roll a 1, we re-roll. Clearly, the dice gods aren't ready to make their choice just yet. Rolls 2 to 7 will send us to Westfall, rolls 8 to 13 will take us to Redridge, and rolls 14 to 20 will send us north, back home to Dunmoreau. With this system, it's completely balanced. Each zone has exactly 6 numbers assigned to it, so no matter what we roll, the odds are perfectly even. Alright, the fate of Goldgated rests on this roll. Let's see where destiny takes us next. Okay, so don't mind my eyes.
Oh my goodness!
Got a really bad eye infection. Sorry if the audio is terrible. But this is a D20. So it's a special D20 because it's got a little beholder in there from D&D. So I could use a different D20 every time, or I could use the same one, I'm not sure yet, but we'll decide. So I normally have a dice tray, but we're all at my friend's house right now, so I'm just going to have to raw dog it onto my desk. So without further ado, we'll roll the D20. No double takes. And see where we're going to go. Ready? No way. Natural 1, which means we have to re-roll. Okay, try again. That is 7. What does 7 mean? 7 means we're going to Westfall. Honestly, I couldn't be happier with that result. It's one of my favourite zones in all of World of Warcraft, packed with nostalgia, music that hits you right in the memories, and plenty of gold making potential. From herbs and ore, to fishing spots and even the dead mines, this place has everything we could ask for to kick off the next phase of the Goldbound challenge. So, Elwynn Forest, it's been great, but it's finally time to spread our wings, pack up our pickaxes, and head out into a new frontier. Let's take a slow walk to the border, one last look at Elwynn before we cross over into a brand new chapter. And there it is, the bridge to Westfall, the edge of everything we've known so far. And next episode, we cross it. Thank you all so much for watching, and for sticking with me through all the madness that got us to this point. I genuinely wouldn't be here without you all. Your support, comments, and the encouragement have kept this challenge alive week after week. So, thank you. This has been Firebeard. Stay sharp, Stay golden, and I'll see you in the next one.